Okay. So this first master class is being recorded, and my name is Dr. Sami Abdel Shalim. Again, this marks the first leg on our journey, and this is not a regular class. This is a master class where the approach is obviously different. We don't do what we usually do in the regular class in terms of me explaining everything and you react and stuff like that. Should be like hands-on where I trigger and I give prompts, and you also, from whatever you have read and processed during the week, you react and you engage in conversation with me. Again, what we're also doing, which is perhaps new, this is something I started last semester, and I think it bore fruit, and that's why I'm repeating it. The idea of turning the regular class into a podcast and an explainer presentation through Google. And I think it's very successful. It sums up the idea. It gives you the core, issues and ideas. I think I shared something with you like this, and I'm sure those who have gone through the podcasts that I sent, and this is, by the way, AI generated. So as you can see, AI is not all bad news, like some people are trying to kind of say or claim. That it has also so many benefits, and it can help us process information, and so this is what we're doing. Part of the effort would be for us to kind of hear together the podcasts and comment on them. They give us ideas that we can expand on and stuff like that. Um, so this is what we're doing, and I have created a WhatsApp group for this purpose, and I called it EA300B material. And of course, by material, I mean those links that I'm talking about, AI generated links, together with also any soft copies, copies of the textbook and PowerPoint presentations, sometimes stuff like that. Um, Today we're starting with Tom's Midnight Garden, and it's a novel that we've been talking about for quite some time. This is perhaps the third time that we'll be talking about it, and I'm sure you have kind of you got to know lots of things about the novel and how it works and what themes and ideas are kind of spawning out of the conversations that we have been um, having about it. So, what comes to mind now that you have taken Tom's Midnight Garden? We still have like a week to kind of finish things up. So, but you have a lot to perhaps share with me about Tom's Midnight Garden. So, when I say Tom's Midnight Garden, what comes to mind? Let's talk about uh, what immediately comes to mind when I say Tom's Midnight Garden. Again, it should be bi-directional. Again, you talk and I talk, not only me and not only you, okay? So Tom's Midnight Garden, everyone and anyone. By the way, we're also
Secret
could
Garden.
okay, the fact that we have yeah, I would like you to elaborate, yeah. Hams. Are you Hams? Yes, your name is Hams. I don't believe you belong to our class. You belong to either Dr. Arwa's class or Dr. Mohsen's class, right?
With Dr. Mohsen, yes.
Nice. Okay. So what do you know? How much do you know about Tom's Midnight Garden, Hams, if any?
It's a secret garden that only appears at midnight.
Hmm. So whatever that means, I mean, is it obviously this is the surface level. This is what meets the eye, but obviously there is more to it than the secret garden. What does having a secret garden mean, and what ideas does it trigger? Can you elaborate on this idea of secrecy, secret garden, whether it had or it has any precedent in the literature, or perhaps this is unique, or how much do you know about this secret garden, ya Hams?
I don't really know much, but I saw a movie like
Nice.
they
Mm,
described it like really large garden,
mm.
and they can't see Tom. Like it's kind of fantasy.
Yeah, that's another element, and this is another dimension, the fact that this is all fantastic, right? And this is all part of the fantasy that the writer is trying to weave, right? So with fantasy, what happens? I mean, obviously, the realistic rules of engagement, if you like, do not hold anymore, right? With fantasy, you fly in the sky, right? Those realistic elements do not really, they mean nothing in fantasies. So when you are in a fantasy is more or less like a dream, right? Right, Ams?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah. Can somebody elaborate on this idea of fantasy, dreams? Because there is an article, a scholarly article, about just that. Have you seen that? There is an article on memory and fantasy, dreams. Anybody? Okay, so would you like to listen to something about how Tom's Midnight Garden is part of a fantasy? It's part of a dream. Let's do that. Wait, I'll show you something interesting. Hmm, this is not what Okay, so s- we're starting with the basic idea about what Tom's Midnight Garden is about, and we're situating it against the world, the grand scheme of things when it comes to literature in general and children's literature in particular. We're going to listen to this like 4 or 5 minute presentation, and then when we come back, we talk more about it. I'll share what I have, and again, if you may have like a pen or a pencil handy where you also take down notes. Of course, I'll share everything with you at the end of the class. You will have all the links so that you can study them on your own too. So now we're going to listen. Um, I'm sharing. Can you see that?
Yes, we
Hello?
can see your screen.
Nice.
Yes,
Okay.
doctor.
Okay. Let me know whether you can also hear. And I'll start, and then you tell me whether you can hear or not.
We've all got that
How about that?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yalla. Shoot. Yalla. Go.
one favorite book from when we were kids, right? A story that just feels, well, simple, safe, and super comforting. But what if I told you that behind those colorful pages and easy-to-read stories, there's a whole world of complexity, symbolism, and, yeah, even debate? Today, we are diving deep into the surprisingly sophisticated world of children's literature. When you think children's literature, this is probably what pops into your head. A university student named Sofana really hit the nail on the head. We expect those happily ever afters, some clear morals, and just positive vibes all around. It's this world where the good guys always win and the lessons are totally straightforward. And for most of us, that's kind of the baseline.
But is that really all there is to it? Is this entire genre just a collection of simple tales for, simple minds? Or is there something deeper, something way more sophisticated, working just under the surface? That is the big question we're going to tackle.
So to get started, we're going to peel back that first layer and look way beyond the happily ever after. We're going to start dismantling some of the most common myths about the books we all grew up reading. Okay, so here's a really crucial distinction. A lot of people think the language in these books is simple. And hey, a lot of the time it is. But as Professor Samik Galil points out, it's very rarely simplistic. See the difference? The best authors, they don't talk down to kids. They use sophisticated language on purpose to elevate them, to expand their minds and their vocabularies. The goal isn't to dumb things down, it's to lift the reader up. So, if it's not just about simple language and happy endings, then what is the secret recipe? Let's take a look at the core ingredients that really make this genre what it is. It really boils down to three main things. First up, you've got the initiation journey. That's where a character basically grows up right in front of us. Then there's the power of fantasy, the stuff that really fuels our imagination. And finally, the archetypal struggle. That timeless, classic battle between good and evil. Let's dig into that first ingredient a little more. The initiation journey is a classic for a reason. You have a character, usually starting out pretty naive, who gets thrown into a bunch of trials. And this is actually where that third ingredient, the archetypal struggle, really kicks in. The journey is the struggle. By facing all these challenges, these big battles of good versus evil, the character learns, they grow, and they are totally changed by the end, moving from a tough spot to a much better one. And next up we have fantasy, which is just absolutely central to the whole genre. Why? Well, because it lets us explore these huge ideas in a world that has no limits. Talking animals, secret magical gardens, these things aren't just for fun. They make the reader suspend their disbelief, open up their imagination, and, like Dr. Galil says, you just enjoy the ride.
Okay, so up to now, we've mostly been talking about novels. But what about a format where the pictures are just as important? Maybe even more important than the words themselves? Yeah, I'm talking about picture books.
We have all heard this saying a million times, and in picture books, it is literally true. To really get these stories, you need something called pictorial literacy. You have to learn how to read the images, to see the story the illustrator is telling right alongside the author. The pictures aren't just pretty decorations, they're a whole narrative all on their own.
So how do we crack this visual code? Well, it's all about looking for clues. Think about the colors. Are they bright and happy, or are they dark and kind of scary? Look at the size of the characters. A giant character looming over a tiny little hero, that instantly tells you everything you need to know about power. Even where a character is looking tells a story. Are they facing each other, creating a connection, or are they turned away, hinting at a fight? Trust me, Every single choice is on purpose.
And of course, we have to talk about anthropomorphism. It's a big word, but the idea is simple. It's when animals act and feel just like humans. Think about Peter Rabbit. He's not just a rabbit, right? He's mischievous, he doesn't listen to his mom, he gets scared. This lets writers explore really complex human behaviors in a way that's super accessible and engaging for kids. All right, so now that we've got our little toolkit for analysis, let's put it to the test. We're going to unpack the title of a classic children's novel, Tom's Midnight Garden, piece by piece, just to see how much meaning can be crammed into four little words. First up, Tom's. The story is named after the boy, Tom, not the other really important female character, Hattie. Right away, that signals that we're probably in the territory of that traditional initiation journey we were just talking about, one that's centered on a boy's growth and his discoveries. Next, we've got Midnight. This one word just plunges us straight into the realm of fantasy. Midnight is a time of magic, of dreams, of mystery. It's when the impossible can suddenly become possible, when secret wishes can be fulfilled, and when the regular rules of the real world just don't apply.
And finally, garden. A garden in literature is almost never just a patch of dirt with flowers. It's usually a magical, protected space, a kind of Eden, where transformation happens. It's a symbol for both personal and philosophical growth, a place where characters go to learn and to change.
So, it's pretty clear these stories are way more complex than they first seem. And that brings us to our final and maybe most challenging question. Are these books really as innocent as we think they are? Or are they trying to do something more?
Dr. Galil makes a really powerful claim here. He argues that no book is truly innocent. Every single author has an agenda, a message they're trying to get across, an idea they want to share. Now, agenda doesn't have to be a bad word, but it does mean that every story is trying to teach us something. And this raises a huge question. Where exactly do we draw the line? Is a book that's influencing a child with a specific viewpoint a form of propaganda? Or is it simply education, raising their awareness about the world and different perspectives? It's a really fine line, and honestly, the answer often depends on your own point of view. And that all leads us to this final thought. In our world today, where the truth itself can often feel, fluid and subjective, who gets to decide what ideas are okay for kids? Is it the author, the parent, the culture as a whole? There are no easy answers here, but it proves one thing for sure. The world of children's literature is anything but simple.
Lots of ideas, right? Yeah, what do you think? So did it add up? Did it consolidate what you've been doing for the past 2 weeks? What are some of the takeaways, if any? Come to the mic. What do you guys now know about Tom's Midnight Garden? What do you guys now know about children's literature and children's novels? Yeah, Budur, come to the mic.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah.
Actually, I know that usually the children literature stories end with happy ending, and it has
Mm.
the positive atmosphere, and also it use like simple words, but not too much simple because they need the children to improve their language, and also the character usually start with like a naive. Then after the experience of the events of the story, they became like more having more knowledge, and also usually the children literature is revolves around the fantasy words and magic and something that not real in our life, like in the Midnight Garden, the garden that appears at the midnight and not appears during the day, which is a magical. And also the garden in the Midnight Garden is the sorry, is kind of Eden, and it is like a magical place where people go and learn and become more aware. For example, we saw that Tom, when he goes to the garden at the end, he becomes like more, he has more emotional growth. He grows in that way. He become able to empathize the losses of others and understand the time will pass, even if in the garden. And also they share about the children literature usually have images in it, and the images in the books in these books is not like just the decoration. It is a part of the novel, because without the picture the children will not be able to like image the world that the writer is referred to, and also the color refers to whether this story is happy or not happy, and just that.
That's great. Yeah, Budur. Yeah. So, yeah, very interesting insights into the world of children's literature and more specifically into the world of Tom's Midnight God. Again, the focus in the video that you have seen or the presentation that you have watched was twofold. We started off by talking about what children's literature are and perhaps focusing more on children's novels where we have this idea of initiation where the male um, character, normally a boy, is initiated into the world by embarking on a journey into the unknown. It can be a forest, it can be a jungle, it can be the desert. And on the way, he goes through trials and tribulations, and he obviously is made to overcome whatever obstacles he meets, so that at the end he emerges triumphant and victorious, and that would be a mark of his initiation into the world of maturity and manhood. So this is normally the trajectory of novels where children are the heroes. Are we seeing this in Tom's Midnight God? Yes, there are echoes of just that. I mean, the the fact that Tom himself is the hero, the titular hero for all the work that we have seen done by Hattie, is an indication that the writer is not deviating from the norm. She uh, is obviously introducing, you know, traditional storytelling, traditional, characters, archetypal in nature, perhaps, where obviously the focus is on the male and the female, however important she may be, is subservient and is secondary. And this is what we have seen with Hattie and Tom. We have spoken long and enough about Hattie and her centrality, and the fact that had it not been for her, we wouldn't have had the whole narrative. But even though she is not the hero, she's not part of the title like Tom is. This is part of the story, and then we delve deep into the novel, and we look into its fantastic world. And by fantastic, of course, I don't mean very good or awesome. By fantastic here, I mean fantasy. And moving to the realm of the imagination, where lots of mm, the realistic elements that we perhaps measure and look for in other works do not hold here. And again, you shouldn't be asking questions as how realistic this is, whether, no, you shouldn't, you should be suspending your disbelief. Um, any other ideas from the presentation that you guys watched? Mm,
It was confirming the idea that mostly all critics and people who are in literature believe that there is some kind of ideology that is put in books, whether the author intended it or did not, which most likely is intended.
the idea of agenda.
Yes.
Yes. Again, yeah, this is true. Again, agendas are not always bad
A
things.
bad
Like I
thing.
said the
Yes.
other day, yeah, you can have, you know, you're promoting awareness about something. Again, the problem with agendas is that you know, people have different perspectives, and whatever you may consider good, I may consider in indoctrinating, and maybe considering you know, taking away from the innocence of children. And lots of people are against the idea that you educate children about something. They want you to leave them on their own so that they can discover the world for themselves. So if you do otherwise, they accuse you of indoctrinating them, of ideologizing them and stuff like that. But bottom line, having an agenda, a good one, is not obviously a sin against the Holy Spirit, like they say. So this is part of it. We spoke about even the plot, you know, what happens when and where, and the fact that we're confined to the magical garden for yeah, a substantial part of the novel, and for very good reasons. The fact that everything happens in the garden, and once the garden is no more, nothing happens, and that would mark the end of the novel. So Hattie as a character, Hattie's history and memories, along with the magical garden, are the catalysts that propel the novel forward. Had it not been for them, you wouldn't have um, this process of initiation that we're talking about. You wouldn't have Tom learning a lesson or two about life and about its non-linearity, about its linearity, I'm sorry, and about the inevitability of um, death and the end of life, and maturity, and the fact that you have sometimes you have to take certain things for granted. The idea of you know, moving forward, the fact that you don't have control Z in life, like I always say. So things happen, and they happen for reasons, and we're moving in our trajectory towards a certain end. So there is nothing unpredictable about life, as a matter of fact. Um, this is part of the effort. This is part of what we've been talking about all through. Let's move on and see something else. Yeah, this is another thing, and I think you'll find it also interesting. It was kind of a source of debate the other day. Ready?
All right, let's talk about a book
Can you hear that?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm sure a lot of you know and love, Philippa Pierce's Tom's Midnight Garden. Now, so many of us remember this one from when we were kids, right? But what's fascinating is that underneath that enchanting story, there are some really deep, really complex ideas hiding in plain sight. On the surface, it's this wonderful, straightforward fantasy. You've got a young boy, Tom, who's sent away for the summer, and he finds this amazing, magical garden that only shows up when an old clock strikes 13. It's the kind of story that just totally grabs your imagination. But what if it's actually about something much bigger? What if this simple story is really a deep dive into the very nature of time itself, a whole nation's sense of grief, and the hard truth about loss? Yeah, there's a lot more going on here. So let's start peeling back some of these layers. Okay, so first things first, let's just do a quick refresher on how this whole adventure even gets started. It all kicks off with a pretty classic setup, right? Tom's summer is completely ruined because his brother gets the measles. So he has to go into quarantine with his aunt and uncle in this super boring flat. But then, late one night, this weird old grandfather clock chimes a 13th hour. And when he sneaks out to check, the dull, tiny yard behind the building is gone. And in its place is this incredible, huge Victorian garden from a totally different era. So, inside this magical garden, Tom meets a young girl named Hattie. And this, right here, is where our deep dive really begins, because her role in the story is so much more important than you might think. I mean, think about this for a second. It's a really great question. The entire garden is literally made from Hattie's memories. The whole adventure is built around her life, her happiness, her sadness. So, why is Tom's name on the cover? It really makes you stop and ask, what is Hattie's actual purpose in the story? And to figure that out, we have to see her not just as some side character, but as a true catalyst. Here's a good way to think about it. A tool is passive, It does one simple thing. But a catalyst is an active force. It sets off this huge fundamental change. Hattie isn't just a convenient way to move the plot along. She is the actual engine that gives the whole story its meaning. In this quote from Dr. Same Galil's analysis just nails it. Hattie's entire life, her suffering, her memories, that's all the raw material for Tom's transformation. Without her, he's just a bored kid stuck in a flat. But because of her, he actually starts to grow up. Okay, so this idea of Hattie being the engine of the story, that brings us to one of the most brilliant parts of the whole novel, the way it messes with time. It's not nearly as simple as you'd think. You've basically got the story running on two totally different clocks at the same time. One is the normal, ticking, relentless clock of the real world. And the other, well, the other one is something way stranger and a lot more flexible. So first, you have linear time. This is the clock outside the garden. It only goes one way, past, present, future. You can't stop it. It's the reality that Tom is stuck in that flat, and that the summer is going to end, and he's going to have to grow up. It's the world, as Dr. Galo points out, that's just inevitable. But then there's the garden's clock, which is all about non-linear time. The second Tom steps into that garden, he's stepping out of his own timeline and right into Hattie's past. One night he might meet her as a little kid, and the very next night she could be a young woman. It's this beautiful, dreamlike dance with memory, where the normal rules just don't apply at all. And this is where the book delivers its really powerful, kind of bittersweet lesson. The magic is amazing, but it's just an escape. It's not a new reality. The garden is described as being the stuff of dreams. And in the end, that dream collapses. And Tom is right back in the real world, where the clock only ever moves forward. Reality always means. Okay, so now let's pull the camera back for our final, biggest zoom out. Because this deep longing for a magical past wasn't just about the characters. It actually mirrored the mood of an entire country at a very specific point in history. You have to remember, Philippa Pierce wrote this book in 1958. Post-World War II Britain was a pretty grim place. As Dr. Gallen highlights, even though they won the war, the country was dealing with broken cities and this deep collective sense of disillusionment. In a world like that, escaping to a better time was an incredibly powerful idea. So the garden then stands for more than just one little girl's childhood. It becomes this nostalgic dream of a glorious green world, the Victorian era, right? A time when the British Empire was at its peak. The book taps into this deep national ache for a past that felt simpler and maybe a little bit grander. So, after all this, what are we supposed to take away? I mean, if the garden is just an illusion and time always wins, what was the point of Tom's journey in the first place? Well, the answer is that the physical trip through time was really just the stage. The real adventure, the important one, was happening inside Tom himself. Through Hattie, Tom learns what empathy truly is. He feels her loneliness, her fears, her losses, almost like they were happening to him. He doesn't just watch her past, he lives it with her. And that shared experience gives him a kind of wisdom and maturity that's way beyond his years. Just think about the contrast for a second. At the start of the book, Tom's biggest problem is that he's bored. Hattie, meanwhile, is dealing with deep, profound loss. He ends up learning some of life's biggest lessons, not because he suffers himself, but because he learns how to feel for somebody else. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. The book seems to suggest that real wisdom comes from what Dr. Galil calls the trials and tribulations of life. So, is it even possible to become truly wise without facing suffering, whether it's our own or by being able to deeply, truly connect with the pain of another person? It's a thought that really stays with you long after you finish the book.
Okay. Ideas, insights, takeaways. Hmm. Yeah, Abdul, go ahead.
Yes, doctor. Actually, I understand from this video that the Tom Midnight Garden in the surface, like you think it is just a magical garden that a boy discovered because he was like don't have anything to do it, but actually, the story has a meaning inside it. For example, Tom, for example, some people ask if this story is about is if this garden coming from Hattie's memorization and what she remember, Tom find it. So why it is not called Hattie's garden instead of Tom garden? And also in this garden or in this story, we have two different kinds of time, which is linear and non-linear. The linear time is that the real time in the flat that Tom lived in, which is moved from second to minutes to hours, weeks, and so on. But the time inside the garden is like a non-linear, not real. It is not real. It depends on what Hattie remembers this what Tom will see. And also, Tom, after like living in this garden for some days, he understand that his separation from his family is not like a big problem because he saw how Hattie suffers from losing her parents and live with her aunts, which treated her poorly. So he started to be able to handle his problems, and also he learns how to empathize toward others, and just that.
Yeah, great. These are very nice ideas that you took away from the presentation. Anybody else? Hello, guys.
I like that it mentions that most of the conflict is happening within the character, that we shouldn't care much about the external garden itself. Though there's a lot of we go back a lot to the garden itself in the story, so obviously it has some symbolism, some importance, but here
Yeah,
he
a
kind of
catalyst. Remember what we said, that
yes,
it is a catalyst, not a mere tool.
yes,
Yeah, go on.
yes.
Yes. Hmm.
I because when I was reading the story, I kept thinking, is it really the garden that's allowing for their union, or is it their emotions, their desperation for companion, for a friend, for Peter to, know what happened with his brother? So for me, I saw it is that emotion was the trigger for them to meet, mostly more than the garden itself, because when they go to the cathedral, that extends far beyond the garden itself.
The
So
garden, yes.
how far is the
Hmm.
garden?
Yeah, you mean
That's
how
my
important?
take.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I subscribe to the idea that the garden is as central as Hattie herself. and you cannot separate the two, Hattie from the garden and the garden from Hattie. And this is actually what happened at the end when Hattie is no more. When she grew into Mrs. from Bartholomew, the garden was no more, right? So they are so attached, and you cannot think of the one without the other, right? The Hattie has to be in the garden, and the garden has to be there for Hattie. That this is a very interesting insight. Thank you, Sofana, for that. Noor, you were raising your hand.
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Yes, I feel that Tom and Hattie has something in common. That's why they met in this garden because they are both lonely. So she mentioned that at the end of the story when she said that her husband is dead and her two young men in the war. So I think that this is the only escape for her from this harsh reality that she's living in, to remember her happy place in the childhood.
Hmm.
So I think that Tom, as a young boy, how can you put a young boy in his vacation with a strict family and with no one to play with, and uh, and just lock him inside for in his room? Yeah, this is very harsh. So
You mean you're
I think
trying to
that
say that they reached out to each other because they have this mutual need.
yeah,
Both of them need companionship, need to share something. He needs to share his desperation, his frustration, the fact that he is away from his brother, and she also wants to share what happened to her over the years, and the amount of loss that she has incurred. I mean, loved ones, whether we're talking about family, parents, kids. So they need each other. There was a need,
yes,
and the magical garden was the this place where they met. Yeah, you have a point there, Yanur. Thank you so much. Hmm?
thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Interesting insights that you guys took away from the video? Are you sure? Because we spoke about lots of things. What about this idea of time and the fact that you have two different types of time, and what do they indicate? I mean, obviously, one of them wins at the end. Obviously, it's the traditional one where we have this idea of linearity, right? And this is again is a takeaway. This is a lesson that Tom learns. The fact that no matter how beautiful the past may be, no matter how much he can live in fantasy, he has to go back to reality. He has to wake up and live up to the promise to continue his life, because this is actually what human beings are there for, right? No matter how hard and harsh the reality is, this is actually what defines human beings, not the dreams that they live in at night, for example. Even dreams come to an end, right? You have to wake up at one point and perhaps dress and go to work or go to school and continue your life, right? So this is one of the lessons. Again, two types of time, but obviously linear time prevails at the end, as it should be. Yeah. Okay. Let's listen to something else. Again, it's also inspired by our discussions in the regular class. Wait. Yeah, let's do it.
Hey everyone, and welcome. So today, we're diving into a book that so many of us grew up with, Philippa Pierce's Tom's Midnight Garden. But this isn't just about nostalgia. Nope. We're going to peel back the layers and get into the hidden psychological stuff that makes this story just so powerful. And it all starts with one big question.
I mean, on the surface, it feels like a ghost story, right? A fantasy. But what if there's something way deeper going on? What if all those spooky encounters and weird time slips are really just a beautiful way of talking about our need to connect with each other, especially when we're feeling totally isolated?
And okay, let's push that idea even more. What if the magic in the story isn't just, well, magic? You know, the garden, that old clock, the big frost. What if all of it is actually a giant metaphor for how we deal with really tough feelings like grief and loneliness, and how we eventually find our way back to healing? All right, section 1, more than a magical garden. So, the whole thing kicks off when this kid, Tom, gets sent away for the summer. He's stuck at his aunt and uncle's place, and then one night, this old grandfather clock goes nuts and strikes 13. And suddenly, a garden appears where there was just a boring old yard before. Okay, section 2, a cure for loneliness. So you've got to ask, what's the key to this whole magical world? Well, the analysis we're looking at says it all comes down to a really powerful, shared feeling between our two main characters. And when you put their situations side by side, it's pretty incredible. You've got Tom, right? His loneliness is, well, it's temporary. His brother has measles, so he's just bored and feeling a bit left out. But then there's Hattie, the girl he meets in the garden. Her loneliness is on a whole other level. I mean, she's an orphan living with this awful aunt. Their situations couldn't be more different, but it's that shared feeling of being totally alone that somehow opens up this magical garden for both of them. So the analysis we're drawing from here brings up this really cool idea of alive versus dead feelings. And when you think about it, both Tom and Hattie start the story kind of emotionally numb, you know? Tom is just grumpy and resentful, and we find out later that the old woman in the house, Mrs. Bartholomew, is described as this shrunken, dead sort of person. The whole book, really, is about them finding their way back to feeling alive again. All right, section 3, decoding the dreamscape. So if we're saying the garden is this place for healing, then all the stuff in the garden has to mean something, right? And the answer is absolutely. These aren't just random fantasy details. They're huge metaphors for what's going on inside the characters' heads. So come on, let's decode some of this. Okay, first up, the garden itself. Just think of it like an imaginary world inside their minds. It's this totally safe space where Tom can work through his own feelings of being left out, mainly by connecting with Hattie, whose loss is so much bigger than his. It's like a dream world where they can finally connect. And then you've got the Great Frost. This is probably one of the most famous parts of the book, right? A huge frost freezes everything solid, and Tom and Hattie skate for miles and miles, all the way to Ely Cathedral. That whole frozen world is a metaphor for the total freedom of being a kid, before all the messy stuff of being a teenager and an adult kicks in. It's this huge, wide-open space that still feels completely safe. But, you know, things can't stay frozen forever. The ice starts to melt, and suddenly that safe world becomes a little more dangerous. And it's right at that moment, as childhood is literally melting away, that Hattie meets this young guy named Barty, who's going to be her husband. The thaw is basically the end of that childhood innocence and the start of adult relationships, a world where Tom, her friend from the past, just doesn't belong anymore. Okay, section 4, when past meets present. So all of this is building to the book's biggest mystery. Tom's summer is almost over, and he's desperate to figure out what's really going on. And it turns out the answer is hiding upstairs with the mysterious old landlady, Mrs. Bartholomew. And here it is. This is the big reveal. The little girl Hattie that Tom's been playing with, she grows up. She's the young woman who meets Barty on the ice. And 60 years after that, she's the old woman, Mrs. Bartholomew, living alone in the house. It's all the same person. Mind-blowing, right? Tom wasn't playing with a ghost. He was playing inside an old woman's living, breathing memories. And that's the key thing to get here. This is so much more than just a clever plot twist. It's the moment where everything just clicks into place. When Tom finally sees Mrs. Bartholomew and shouts, "Hattie," he's basically pulling her dead, shut-down elderly self back into the alive feelings of her childhood. It's like her dreams and memories literally become real, right there in the present moment, all because of him. And get this, there's actual physical proof. In the garden back in the past, Hattie hides her old ice skates for Tom to find. And then, 60 years later, in his own time, Tom finds those exact same skates tucked away. The skates are the anchor. They're the one physical thing that proves this was all real, that it wasn't just a dream. It's like a promise fulfilled across 6 decades. Okay, Section 5, the story about storytelling. So, we've talked about the psychology, the metaphors, the big plot twist, but there's one last really beautiful layer to unpack. And it's the idea that this book is actually about storytelling itself. Seriously, think about it for a second. How does Tom get into the past? He opens a door at a very specific time, and boom, he's in another world, totally lost in the life of this girl from decades ago. I mean, isn't that exactly what happens when you open a good book? Tom's whole adventure is basically a perfect metaphor for the magic of reading.
And it all comes down to this one simple question. What was it like when you were little? It's a question kids ask their grandparents all the time, and it's really the heart of the whole book. That's how we connect with the past, right? Through stories. That's our vehicle for time travel, for jumping into the lives of people who lived before us and really getting what their world was like.
And ultimately, that is the real magic of this story. Through this amazing, shared experience that literally crosses time, two incredibly lonely people give each other exactly what they need. Mrs. Bartholomew, who we learn lost her own children, gets to connect with a child again. And Tom, who's feeling lost and separated from his own family, finds this amazing grandmother figure. Their story, this shared dream, is what makes them both whole again. So, I want to leave you with this thought. What Tom's Midnight Garden seems to be saying is that our memories, the stories of the people we love, they're not really gone. They're still there, in a place we can go back to, our own personal Midnight Garden. And that kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What stories from your past are still alive inside you, just waiting for that clock to strike 13?
Mhm. Yeah, interesting, right? Okay, so what do you have to say about this part? Would you like to process it a little more? Can I give you like 10 minutes? Can be a nice diversion for a break and also for you to process what we have just seen or watched. So I'll see you in 10 minutes, inshallah. Okay? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, doctor.
Okay, nice. So before the break, it was all about what? Still remember the last video? Was it our third or second video? Still remember?
It is our third video.
Okay. So what do you guys still remember about this video? I gave you some time to even process it. Some of the ideas were quite perhaps new, things that we're going to talk about in our regular class. But it's all about memory. It's all about find connection in this fantasy world. So how much do you still remember about that video? Okay. So Budur is going to sum up the idea for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, doctor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I remember from the video that both of them feel lonely, where Tom misses her family, his brother, and he will spend his vacation with not someone to play with, and while Hattie also feels lonely because she lost, I mean, her family, her parents, her husband, her sons. So the garden is like a place where they can escape from the reality that they don't like, and also the theme of alive and death. Actually, while
Alive.
the alive, alive. Actually, while Miss Bartholomew is alive, she feels like she did, yani inside. And when her neighbors saw her, they think this woman is like someone who's sad and don't like to talk with others. But actually, after she find Tom in the real world, and after the recognition of them, she feel a kind of alive again. Like she find like a hope that she enjoy that, and also the
And
skate.
I like this idea because
Yeah,
before I forget this idea that she finds in Tom the grandson that she lost, and he finds in her the grand mother that
grandmother.
he misses perhaps or lost.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
and
a very powerful way of putting it.
yeah,
Yeah,
good. And also the skate that Tom find it, it's like a sign or a proof of the existence of the other world, um, and also the recognition between Tom and Mr. Bartholomew is like also another proof of the existence of the another world. And at the end, actually, the garden it seems like a way that help them to pass their time and also to heal from their pains and just that.
that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. Who else?
My favorite takeaway from the video was that how he represented the idea of Tom being in the book, like us readers engaging in a story. And after we finish the story, it kind of sort of lives on with us. That's an aspect that is true to almost every reader, and I really liked how they represented it.
Yeah, the fact that we're all parts of stories within stories. It's like this Russian, um, they call it doll nests, where you have something inside something inside something. Yeah, this is yeah, the narrative is what defines human being. Storytelling, right? You tell story, I tell mine, and sometimes we come together, we relate in one way or another, and this is how human connections start and perhaps end, right? Yeah, this is a very powerful way of putting it. The fact that people reach out to each other with a story to share and tell. And this is how people feel, kind of empathy towards each other, right? Other interesting ideas, because this video is full of interesting ideas. The fact that all what we have seen, the material things, whether we're talking about the garden, whether we're talking about the river, these are all metaphors. So metaphors for what and about what? Remember?
Doctor, can you repeat the question? The internet is a bit laggy.
Yeah, I'm talking about these different objects that we're having, whether we're talking about the garden, whether we're talking about the river, the cathedral. These are all metaphors. What do they indicate? What do they demonstrate? What do they suggest if they're metaphors?
The frozen river is a metaphor of the childhood,
Hmm.
and the ice cows is a metaphor of the adulthood where Hattie meets Barty and she will start يعني, go from the childhood life to the adulthood. She will get married and so on. And
Hmm.
the garden in general, it is a
And
metaphor of,
even the idea that you have a frozen river, it will not stay frozen forever, right?
yeah, it will be melt.
So this is again about um, how things have to change, no matter um, when, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
nice.
also, the garden is in general a metaphor of the Imagine world or that Eden world, great world
Mm,
that you will happy and explore new things and so on. And the Tom's journey itself, in this story, it is a metaphor of us when we read like some story, we engage in this Imagine world. So they show us that through Tom.
yeah, that's interesting.
Just that.
Yeah, thank you, Budur. Anybody else?
Welcome, Doctor.
Are you with me or with any of the other two teachers? Yeah, Budur. Are you in my class or
Yes,
in?
actually, Doctor, I'm with you from 10 to 12.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Any other interesting ideas? Okay, so I think we have time for one more video before we call it a night. Let me see. And before I share the video, I think I need to include you in this WhatsApp group for material. Let me see if I can have the link to the group so that I can share it with you. No. Okay, so this is the group link, and I'll put it in the chat. Can you see that?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Yeah. Okay, so this is again the group. We're going to keep it for both things, for master classes and also for the material, the links that I'm sharing with you. And feel free to kind of share it with your our other colleagues in the other two classes. Okay, let's move now to the last video. Yeah, let's do it.
You've probably heard of Tom's Midnight Garden, right? For a lot of us, it's this classic children's book we loved. You know, a magical story about a secret garden and time travel. But today, we're going to dig a little deeper, look at it through a more academic lens, and uncover the incredible story that's hiding just under the surface. So the setup is pretty straightforward. You've got a young kid named Tom who's bored out of his mind staying with his aunt and uncle. But then he discovers that when this old grandfather clock in the hall strikes 13, yeah, 13, he can sneak into this absolutely amazing garden that just isn't there during the daytime. But here is where things get really interesting. What if this whole story isn't just a cool fantasy? What if what Philippa Pierce wrote is actually something else entirely? Like a kind of map. A map of how our own consciousness grows. The analysis we're diving into today suggests that this entire book is a journey into the human mind. It's a story about memory, about empathy, and ultimately about how we learn to connect with other people and with ourselves. So, to really get this journey, we have to start right where Tom starts. And it's not with magic or wonder. No, it's with this deep, deep feeling of frustration and being completely trapped. The story literally opens with Tom in tears of anger. Why? Because his brother has the measles, and he's been shipped off to his relatives feeling totally alone and abandoned. As the scholar Roni Matov says, he's basically every child, stuck and totally tyrannized by the rules of the adult world. And this tyranny of adult reason isn't just some abstract thing. It's his uncle Alan insisting that kids need 10 hours of sleep, even when Tom is wide awake and miserable. Tom feels completely unheard, just stuck in a world that makes no sense to him. And that feeling of being trapped, that's the key that unlocks everything else. And it's from that exact feeling of confinement that this incredible escape springs to life. The discovery of the garden. Tom is basically living in two different worlds, and they couldn't be more different. The flat is his conscious, daytime reality. It's boring, it's restrictive, and time just ticks by, minute by minute. But the garden, oh, the garden, is the world of the unconscious. Time there is what you might call mythic, where past and present can exist all at once. It's all about freedom, richness, and connection. This place is where Tom can finally be free. It's lush, it's wild, it's full of life. The total opposite of that stuffy little flat. This is where he finds the kind of harmony and friendship he's been so desperate for. But the garden isn't empty. This is where Tom meets a girl, Hattie, and their relationship becomes the absolute core trial of his whole emotional journey. So Tom and Hattie become fast friends, but there's a problem. They exist in totally different times. And this leads to this huge conflict where they start questioning if the other person is even real. And this isn't just some silly playground argument. It's a really deep question about what it means to exist. Tom, trying to use logic from his real world, tries to rationalize Hattie away. He figures it out in his mind. He tells her she has to be a ghost from the past, trying to force his reality onto hers. But Hattie's response isn't logical at all. It's pure, raw, painful emotion. And her cry, her pain, it forces Tom to see beyond himself. For the very first time, he's faced with the real, genuine suffering of another person, and it just shatters his whole self-centered point of view. And this sequence, it perfectly maps out Tom's growth. His journey starts with this kind of selfish need to escape, right? But through his connection with Hattie, it morphs into something so much bigger, the birth of real empathy. He learns that other people's worlds and their feelings are just as real as his own. This huge emotional breakthrough is what sets the stage for the story's amazing climax, the moment where all the puzzle pieces of time, memory, and identity just snap into place. So the big question is still hanging there. How is all of this even possible? How can a boy from the present be playing with a girl from the Victorian era? Well, the story gives us a beautiful and pretty moving answer. On his very last day, Tom finally meets the mysterious old landlady, Mrs. Bartholomew. And with just a few words, the whole thing comes together. She tells him that she is the little girl Hattie that he was playing with in the garden all along. So the magic, it turns out, isn't just random time travel. It's a shared experience, a connection on a psychic level. Tom's intense loneliness and longing somehow reached into the old woman's dreams, letting her relive her own childhood memories and letting him step right inside them. It was their shared feeling that bridged that impossible gap in time. So, what does this all add up to? The whole story becomes what the essay we're looking at calls a pastoral of consciousness. Now, I know that sounds pretty academic, but what it really means is that the garden isn't just a place, it's a mental and emotional landscape. It's this symbolic space where a character can go to heal, to grow, and to expand their whole understanding of who they are and their connection to others. And when you start looking at it like that, all the key symbols in the story just click. The garden is the unconscious mind, or the past. The time travel is really just a beautiful metaphor for memory. That angel on the clock, it symbolizes this unifying vision where opposites, like past and present or child and adult, can come together. And most important of all, the bond between Tom and Hattie shows us that empathy is the real magic. It's the force that can connect us across any barrier, even time itself. And that really is the profound question the story leaves us with. Tom's journey was about literally entering someone else's past. But for us, it's a powerful reminder. It makes you ask yourself, how do we visit our own pasts? How do we find and connect with those child selves that are still very much alive, right inside our own memories?
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, and this marks the end of the videos. But before we go, tell me what you took away this time around. Nothing?
Doctor, I think that the story in general is about memory and empathy, and also the connection with others, and also the connection between present and past. Regarding the memory, we see that Hattie remembers her memories, and then Tom enter into it through the garden, and empathy, Tom through seeing her suffering, like loose and lonely, and the poor treatment from her aunt. He gave him like a sense of empathy, and also we see that regarding who's real, where we saw that Tom say to Hattie that you are a ghost, you are a dead, and where Hattie start like to some kind of a cry, no, I'm not dead, I'm not a ghost, and Tom do that because people when they try like to protect themselves, they push them to others, because Tom believed that if he don't say Hattie you are a ghost, it means he is the ghost. So due to that, he say to her, you are a ghost. And also the story in general, it is about a journey of Tom, where he enter someone past to experience and to also grow in regard grow emotionally, and just that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Budur. Sufana?
I like the irony in this where it's the living that haunt the past and not the past that haunts the living.
How so? How did you read it? How did
Because
you,
Tom
yeah,
Tom is hunting Hattie's past, and it's not Hattie haunting the present at the moment. So there's some kind of subtle irony to this point, which is a
yeah,
twist that I find very nice.
yeah. This is part of the power and the magic of the novel. The novel has been received very well by people, and they lots of people spoke about the power of the language, the power of the imagery, the analogies that the writer is making. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, Noor.
Yes, doctor. They spoke about mental, emotional escape landscape, which is the garden. So here we do this a lot when we are in a very difficult situation or through hardship. So we want our mind just to rest a little bit. So we maybe remind some old memory, or we want to live a similar situation like what we lived before. So
Hmm.
and the human mind make this a lot. Even Alzheimer disease, it is an escape sometimes. People who are in war, like my country, so some people get this disease a lot. So the explanation
I
from
mean,
medicine is,
you mean they try to fly away from the miserable here and now, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
This is what our minds do. Sometimes it needs to ease
Consciously and
things
sometimes unconsciously, right?
unconscious. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm.
sure.
That's a
So,
very interesting point. Yeah, go on, Yanur.
uh, this story is not a simple one. That's because it discusses those matters. Um, yeah, you can escape also by the last question that it was asked in the video. How can we escape? Maybe reliving a memory that is very good to you. So
Mm-hmm.
you relive it maybe in your daydreaming or in your sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened in the story. Only this. Thank you.
Yeah, you're trying to kind of establish a relationship between reality and the subconscious mind, where sometimes in order to kind of perhaps stand reality with its sordidness, with its harshness, you try to kind of escape through dreams. And obviously, when you are in a dream, you are unconscious, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes you lie to yourself. Yeah, yeah. Again, one way of doing it is to have, like you're saying, you have Alzheimer. Again, this is perhaps total escape from reality, because obviously when you are in a state of Alzheimer, you never come back to reality. Yeah, these are very good points that you're making. Yeah, Noor, thank you for them. Unless you guys have anything else to add, we will call it a night. Any questions, any queries? Again,
Doc- Doctor?
let me before Sufana, before you say something or
Yes.
anything, I would like to alert you to the fact that we will have we used to have two quizzes in the midterm and a final. Now we will have the main quiz, which is out of 10, and this is going to be writing, and you will have to come to university for it. And the other 10 marks are going to be divided over a number of what we call in-class activities, and they are 8. So we'll see how we will do them and let you know next week. But I'm telling you that it's not anymore this two quiz setup that we're familiar with from previous classes. Now we have a 10 mark quiz that you come to university for, and another 10 marks, and those are dedicated for what we now call in-class activities. I'll give you all the details, inshallah, next week. Yeah, go ahead, Yusufan.
That was I was going to ask about that.
You wanted to ask about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll give you all the details, inshallah, next week.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome. طيب يا جماعة, I'll see you
Thank you.
next week, inshallah. مع السلامة. Bye bye.